Hello, welcome to episode 5 of Now But Seriously the podcast. I am Cheryl, and yeah, I feel like the camera is right up in my mind. If you are thinking the same, please just humour me because I'm not going to start faffing about and trying to readjust the camera and everything like that. So we're just going to roll with it. Okay, so I saw a post online that asked, what is good dick and what is good cat? Most answers from women was good dick is a big dick, and most men said good cat is fat and wet. Now, I'm not going to get into the what constitutes a fat cat, and we kind of all know what wet means. So it just kind of led me on to thinking, what is actually good sex? Because we can sit here and we can talk about the fact that, okay, we like a big dick or we like a really wet cat or whatever, but is that enough to make the sex good? Is it about how we feel? Is it about connection? Is it about physicality? Or is it just like a combination of everything? Can you have one without the other? Or is it necessary to have both in order to be able to call something good? Good sex is subjective, but what I will say is, in my personal opinion, it's the best when there's a combination of physicality and emotion. And I think I've spoken about this before. When I say emotional, I don't necessarily mean, oh, you've got to be that deep in love or just like really kind of feeling for that person on a kind of, rose to love. It could just simply mean that you have some kind of feeling towards them. It's just not an entirely cold setup. There's some feeling, there's some warmth. It's basically not just a cold fuck. And whilst sometimes, yeah, that is what people want. Sometimes people just want that raw, straight to the point fuck, no strings, no nothing, no emotions, no feelings, no nothing. Sometimes that's what people want. And if that's what we're doing, then that's fine. But I think if it's something that you're doing regularly with the same person, good physical attraction, compatibility, and even respect definitely makes for a good time. I kind of want to hone in on compatibility. I think this is important, very, very important. In fact, I think it's something we kind of overlook in a way. Most of us think about the initial. And the initial is usually physical. We look at someone and we think, oh yeah, we want to fuck them, or oh yeah, they look like that's my type, that's what I like. It's what we see, what ticks our boxes, and then whatever happens, happens. And because you're so hyped up in your head, because the attraction is off the chart, you're really feeling what you see, you're just excited to be able to get to that intimate place with this person based purely on physical attraction. You don't actually think about how it's going to pan out. I mean, let's be real. The first time you go there with anybody, the excitement alone is enough to make the whole situation just great, unless of course you have a really bad situation. But generally, excitement will give you what you need. But what about when you're trying to make it a regular thing? If that's what you are doing, then compatibility is everything. Sexual compatibility is about how people, or however many people there are in a setup, how their needs, desires, and even fantasies align. It's about things you like, things you don't like. These things kind of form the cornerstone of a good sex session. So for example, if there's something that you particularly enjoy during sex and the person you are doing it with doesn't, then that could actually be a problem long term. But imagine if you both do things that you both like and you both enjoy to each other, for each other, then it's all good. People that enjoy similar things are generally more compatible. Take, for example, and I kind of use this as a classic because a lot of people that I speak to, this can sometimes present as an issue: oral sex. Now, the jury is out on this one. Some like it, some don't, some love it, some completely despise it. It really is down to personal choice, influences, ways of thinking, societal pressures, perceptions. Just there's so many things around why people don't like things. Quite often it's deeper than just the fact that they don't like it, because what you might find is people that say they don't like a particular thing haven't actually tried it, or they may have tried it once or twice and had a bad experience with it and therefore have decided that they no longer intend to engage in that activity again. And that's fine. At the end of the day, it's an individual's prerogative to do what they please when it comes to sex. But imagine if you are someone that absolutely loves the feel of oral sex and you get with someone that is not interested in doing that at all. Long term, there's going to be an issue, isn't there? If you're someone that kind of sits on the fence, like you're kind of here nor there with it, you like it, but it's not essential, then that's different. You could probably live without it. But if it's one of your non-negotiables when it comes to sex, let's just say, then it's going to be a problem. That would probably make you not compatible with that person because it's something that you desire, it's something that you need, and it's something that you enjoy. So yeah, there's so many ways of considering sexual compatibility. It's about being open to exploring as well, isn't it? Again, kind of keeping with the whole example of oral sex. If you're with someone that doesn't particularly like it or hasn't found much joy in doing it in the past, but are now prepared to give it a go because they understand that this is what you like, then that might be enough. I guess it's just about having respect for another person's preferences and also being able to kind of communicate around that. It's a bit like fantasies. Sometimes another person's fantasy might not be what you want to do, but because you know that's what they want or you know that's what they desire, you kind of open yourself up to exploring that. All of these things contribute to compatibility. I mentioned communication. Sexual compatibility is also about the way you communicate with each other. So that could be during sex or outside of sexual activity. Being able to talk about stuff that you liked, that you didn't like, and sort of steer the conversation towards pointing out things that might need improving actually develops a level of trust and comfortability. Being able to talk about boundaries, for example, with someone that you're having sex with is probably not going to be an initial thought on most people's minds. But when you really deep it, it's actually quite important. It's about making the other person know what your cutoff point is, rather than just kind of getting there and being like, no, I don't do this, not into that, not feeling that, and it's just all really awkward and just uncomfortable. If you're able to communicate these things to the other person, then that indicates good compatibility in a sense. Other areas that would indicate whether there's good compatibility or not is when it comes to emotions. Are you someone that's overly emotional? If you are, do you need someone that matches your emotion? Or does it work better for you if someone isn't as emotional as you, but is happy for you to be that kind of emotional? Do you know what I mean? They kind of complement you rather than kind of join in on your emotions. I mean, you have to think about the fact that different people require different levels of intimacy in order to feel closeness. This feeling close and feeling emotional could actually significantly enhance the whole sexual experience. So it's crucial that if you need to feel connected and safe in a setup, then you get that feeling of being connected and safe. So many pointers towards sexual compatibility, but the fact of the matter is, even relationships that appear to be totally compatible on paper may still show up some misalignment at times, because we are all people. We evolve. We are not static. We don't sort of stay in one place. Our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, it's constantly just doing stuff. This is why communication is crucial, as is being patient and, wherever necessary, showing a willingness to compromise in some instances. It's all about balance, growth, boundaries, respect, feeling satisfied, and, where necessary, feeling emotionally connected. Okay, have you ever heard of persistent genital arousal disorder? I mean, you may have heard it referred to as PGAD or restless genital syndrome. Maybe you haven't heard of it at all, because let's be honest, it's quite a rare situation, but it's a real one all the same. It's a condition that impacts predominantly women. And I want to talk about it because there's so many things when it comes to sex involving like the body and just all things kind of around sex that we just don't think about or have to think about, because, well, I mean, if it doesn't impact us, we just don't think about it, right? Persistent genital arousal disorder is a real situation and real people live with it. So this condition is wild because it causes you to feel excited and aroused just randomly. So in other words, you don't actually have to be doing anything that sexually stimulates you or appeals to you sexually or turns you on to actually feel aroused if you've got this condition. It's an uncontrollable thing. You could just be sitting there minding your own business, then suddenly there'll be an increase in blood flow to the genitals as if you're being stimulated. Your clitoris would start to swell as if you're being aroused. And it's likely your vagina would start to throb too, just mimicking everything that kind of pops off when you're being aroused. And what's more, imagine this feeling can last for hours. In fact, it can last for days or even weeks. I'm telling you, in some instances, this can last for weeks. Having an orgasm can temporarily relieve the symptoms, only temporarily. And the situation itself can apparently become so overwhelming that you can't actually think of anything else. So this is now not just taking over your body, but it's infiltrating your mind too. Like, just for a second, can you imagine living with a situation like this? I mean, yeah, most people do enjoy the feeling of being aroused and everything that comes with that. But imagine just being aroused or feeling aroused just randomly, and that feeling just going on and on and on in some instances, and you have no control over it, or there's no real reason in your mind why you should be feeling like that. That's going to have an effect on your mental health. 100%. I mean, I can imagine how a person must feel about this. And also, there would be a level of embarrassment around actually going and seeking help. For most people, how do you kind of address that topic with your GP? I mean, doctors and healthcare professionals are there to help us, but the crazy thing about it is we kind of pigeonhole what is deemed as acceptable or kind of okay to talk about with doctors. Something like this, I think, for most people would fall outside of the realms of what would be seen as a normal conversation for a doctor. It would evoke a lot of embarrassment for some. And because of that, They won't talk about it. So you've probably got someone that deals with this sitting in silence or living with this in silence and just sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. Not talking about stuff is very common, as we know. And this is a fact that I don't particularly love, because I'm definitely someone that advocates for therapy and talking about stuff and trying to kind of unpick and unpack. But I also get why it's difficult for some. Okay, so really quickly, what is the cause of persistent genital arousal disorder? The truth is there is no actual and factual explanation. It's an area that's still very much under investigation. However, there are theories that kind of indicate it could be down to hormonal changes, even things like stress. So there could be psychological triggers, genital infections or issues with the pelvis could be the cause. And more recently, research has shown that it could be directly linked to neurological issues. So that's like damage or dysfunction to nerves that impact the genital area. Treatment, well, treatment would depend on the individual, but there are things like psychotherapy, which will probably be one of the initial kind of stop-off points, if you like. Maybe some pelvic floor therapy that will essentially look at what's going on with the pelvis and try and address that. Maybe even some medication. And in very rare cases where treatments haven't worked, maybe surgery might be considered, but that's really extreme. So just to stress, PGAD is very rare, but honestly, could you imagine? I feel we need to know about these things, because not only are there people that are dealing with this in silence, but you just never know. Something like this could happen to you. Like, we're all just organic beings. Like, we just don't know what's around the corner. So knowledge is key. And it's important that we are aware of all kinds of situations. So of course we can address them and make sure we get the help that we need if we need it. So we are officially in winter. The fact that I've been walking around with the end of my nose looking like Rudolph tells me so. It is cold. And I know we've just kind of had the back end of Storm Dara, which has kind of added to the wind chill factor, but I'm cold. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I am cold. I don't do cold. I'm not a fan of cold. The only time I would do cold is if I'm supposed to be doing cold, like if I'm going skiing or something like that, then that's when we're supposed to be cold. And to be quite honest with you, you're not actually cold because you're nice and warm and you've got your ski suit on and all that kind of stuff. Only your face is cold, but you kind of expect that. I don't do this, put my foot outside the front door and it feels like it's going to drop off because it's too much. I don't do this, okay, I'm going for a walk. By the time I get to the end of the road, the tips of my fingers feel like they want to fall off, even though I've got gloves on. I am not a fan. That is not the kind of cold that I like to enjoy. Sorry, I just kind of have to get that off my chest. But you know what I'm saying? I feel like most people would relate. The cold is something that you can enjoy when you're mentally ready for it. I'm never mentally ready for this wet, dark, cold, shitty, British winter weather. I'm never ready. I'm never ready. I'm never going to be ready. Anyway, the point I was trying to make was that the cold weather can actually make you horny. Yeah. Research tells us when your body is colder, it increases in the production of testosterone to keep you warm, but that particular hormone is also responsible for libido. So if you do start to feel like you're more on it than usual, then number one, if it's cold, that's probably the reason why. And number two, you're definitely not alone on this. All right, so that's it from me. If you're watching on YouTube, as per, please like, subscribe, comment, share, all of that good stuff. If you're just listening, fantastic. I appreciate that too. Again, feel free to share if you want to. But of course, more importantly, do make sure you check back next week for another episode. So until then, stay lush, stay toasty, and do not let this cold weather take the piss out of you. Wrap up warm. See you next week.